Have you ever wondered what really led to the American Civil War? It wasn't just a single event, but a deep-seated clash of cultures that had been brewing for decades. To truly understand this pivotal moment in American history, we need to rewind the clock and explore the two very different worlds that were the North and the South before the war. It was a tale of two Americas, living under one flag but marching to the beat of two entirely different drums. Let's start with the land itself. Geography played a huge role in shaping these two regions. The North, with its rocky soil, colder climate, and natural harbors, was never ideal for large-scale farming. This pushed Northerners toward trade, shipbuilding, and eventually, industry. Cities like New York, Boston, and Philadelphia became bustling centers of commerce and manufacturing. Life was faster, more crowded, and built around the rhythm of the factory whistle and the trading floor. Contrast that with the South. With its fertile soil, warm climate, and long-growing seasons, the South was an agricultural paradise. This geography made it perfect for cultivating cash crops like cotton, tobacco, and rice on vast plantations. Life here was slower, more rural, and centered around the agricultural calendar. Instead of bustling cities, society was organized around large, isolated plantations and smaller farms. This fundamental difference in landscape set the stage for two completely different economic paths, and at the heart of the Southern economy was the institution of slavery. The Southern agricultural empire, especially the Cotton Kingdom, was built on the backs of enslaved African Americans. This economic reliance wasn't just a business model, it became a cornerstone of Southern society and identity. Southerners defended slavery not just for its economic benefits, but as a social order, a peculiar institution they believed was essential to their way of life. Meanwhile, the Northern economy was rapidly industrializing. The Industrial Revolution took hold, and factories sprang up producing textiles, tools, and a wide array of other goods. This economy relied on immigrant labor and a system of free wage earners. As the North grew more industrialized and interconnected through canals and railroads, many Northerners began to see slavery as not only morally wrong, but also economically backward and incompatible with the nation's future. This stark economic divide, one based on enslaved labor and the other on free labor, created a massive and growing rift between the two regions. This economic split fueled a fiery political and cultural conflict over states' rights versus federal authority. Southerners were fierce advocates for states' rights. They believed that individual states should have the power to make their own laws, including laws about slavery without interference from the federal government. They saw a strong central government as a threat to their autonomy and their entire social structure. Northerners, on the other hand, increasingly supported a stronger federal government. To build their industrial economy, they needed federal support for things like tariffs to protect their industries from foreign competition, and for infrastructure projects like roads and railways to connect the country. They believed in the power of the Union and the idea that federal law was supreme. This fundamental disagreement over the role of government, whether power should rest with the states or the nation, became a major battleground. The Industrial Revolution didn't just change the economy, it poured gasoline on the fire of these sectional tensions. As Northern factories churned out goods, they wanted to sell them across the country. They favored high tariffs to make imported goods more expensive, encouraging Americans to buy Northern products. But for the agricultural South, which imported many manufactured goods and exported its cotton to Europe, these tariffs were a disaster. They saw it as the federal government favoring Northern industrial interests at the expense of the Southern farmer. The economic policies that helped one region directly harmed the other, intensifying feelings of resentment and exploitation. These tensions often boiled over into violence, and nowhere was this clearer than in the territory of Kansas in the 1850s. The Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854 allowed settlers in these new territories to decide for themselves whether to allow slavery. What followed was a mad rush. Pro-slavery and anti-slavery settlers flooded into Kansas, each side determined to win the territory for their cause. The result was a brutal, small-scale civil war known as Bleeding Kansas. Armed clashes, voter fraud, and political assassinations became commonplace. This shocking violence showed the entire nation that the argument over the expansion of slavery could no longer be contained by polite debate. It was a terrifying preview of the national conflict to come. For decades, American politicians had tried to hold the fragile Union together with a series of compromises: the Missouri Compromise of 1820, the Compromise of 1850, and others were all attempts to balance the interests of the North and South, particularly regarding the expansion of slavery into new territories. For a while, these delicate balancing acts worked, or at least they delayed the inevitable. They were temporary fixes, bandages on a deep and festering wound. But by the late 1850s, the divisions had become too deep to bridge. The cultural gap was immense, the economic systems were in direct opposition, and the political trust had completely eroded. Events like the Dred Scott Supreme Court decision and John Brown's raid on Harper's Ferry shattered any remaining hope for a peaceful resolution. The compromises that had held the nation together for so long finally failed. The two Americas, born from the same revolution but raised on different soil, with different economies and different dreams, were finally on an unstoppable collision course toward civil war. The clash of cultures had reached its breaking point. Understanding these deep-rooted differences is key to understanding why the Civil War happened. It was a conflict born from decades of growing apart. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. If you found this history interesting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the past. See you next time.